Hey guys, Steve here. Today I got a beginner's guide on consumables. That's right, a new beginner's guide. And this one's been on my to-do list for a long time. I never got around to it yet, but I'm constantly reminded how many new players are still joining in all the time. And this is good info that I thought would be helpful for new players. So thought I'd get it out there better late than never. Well, basically I'm going to break down each consumable that's currently in the game and go over kind of a brief overview of it and then maybe some general tips and strategies to use those consumables. For more in-depth info, I got a lot of that contained within the body of the work on this channel, so you just kind of have to watch some videos to get into more in-depth strategy. But this will give you a good overview. So first up we have Damage Control Party. Damage con for short. Damage con stops floods, it stops fires, and it speeds up the fixing of mods and stuff like that are damaged. So anytime you have a mod that's counting down on the screen with an icon that's being fixed, the damage con will basically finish that repair. Now, damage con, when it's active, it is green. You can see that box when I activated it. It was green briefly. That changes with the ship and the nation you're playing with. Like, Americans have longer duration active periods, for instance. During that active period, you can't take damage. And then after that, you have a cooldown. Now, cooldowns can be affected by commander skills and, commander builds, basically. So, managing your damage con is extremely important, especially for battleships. It's a key component of battleship play, but it's important for all classes. Basically, you need to always weigh the options. If you have one single fire, if you put that fire out by using damage con, then you have that long cooldown. And if you get two fires or a flood or something like that, you cannot repair it while the cooldown is active. So you always got to be careful about when you're going to use it. In general, you don't want to repair one fire unless you're reasonably sure that you are no longer susceptible to taking damage. Floods, on the other hand, you want to pretty much repair those every chance you get because they last a lot longer and can do more damage to your ship. So damage con, learning how to use it well, key component to this game, and especially for battleship play, it's extremely important. Now next up we got a heal. It's called Repair Party. You can see that green faded bar on my health bar there. That's how much damage potentially can be healed by using the heal. Heals are found on pretty much all battleships, some cruisers, and very rarely on destroyers, at least currently. While it's active, you see that green countdown. That's what I was talking about earlier. That's when you're actively healing. So you can see because I ran out of light damage, I'm wasting part of that heal in this instance. And it's always a trade-off. You'll have anywhere from 2 to potentially 5 heals depending on your build and ship. And spacing those out so you're not missing them by the end of the match is kind of important for using heals. So even if you're not necessarily healing max damage, sometimes you'll want to use that heal just so it'll cycle through, heal up the damage, then go through the cooldown, and it'll be available for next time you want to use it. So using heals effectively are kind of like damage control. You got to kind of weigh the cost and the benefit of using it at any given moment. But healing, you're going to be healing light damage, so that's pretty much all fire flood damage. Non-citadel damage, very small portions of citadel damage are healable by Repair Party, and it just kind of depends on the damage your ship is sustaining, whether or not you'll be able to heal it. But again, that green bar that's next to your health, that's what's potentially going to be healed by using the heal. Next up we got planes, and I'll break this down into two sections, one for cruisers, one for battleships. This section will be obviated or obsolete if they ever introduce aircraft carriers. At the time I'm making this video, there are no aircraft carriers. But the plane your ships employ are called fighter planes. They're kind of designed to repel enemy planes, but because there's not that many enemy planes in the sky, they're currently used pretty much only for spotting. So when you have a plane active, it'll circle around your ship. I think it takes about a minute for a full rotation. You can see on the map that white little orb that's rotating around me. That's the plane. And the closer it gets to the enemy, each ship has a detection range by air. And if the plane gets within that ship's detection range by air, it'll spot that ship for you. Doesn't matter if there's islands or anything intervening. Smoke will hide ships from planes, but hiding behind cover, it doesn't matter if it looks like there's a direct line of sight from the plane to the ship or not. It's just, is that ship within that air detection radius of the plane? And while it is, it'll be spotted. Ships can shoot down the planes if they get close. Each ship has its own AA rating that'll deal with the planes. For cruisers, you have 6 minutes of flight and 3 minutes of downtime. I generally will activate them about 30 seconds in and then just use them as they're available throughout the match. It'll just give you kind of a passive additional spotting bonus depending on where the plane is. So it's less fruitful to try and direct exactly where the plane's launching and that sort of stuff, just because the plane lasts so long, and if you're less likely to get close enough to the enemy to have it shot down. Battleships, on the other hand, much more selective. You have a minute and a half flight time and then the cooldown period. Now, battleships, you're going to want to use your planes much more selectively when you're pretty sure that by activating it, you'll spot a target that you need to spot that you can't currently see. So if you have something hiding behind cover that you want to find out where it is, or you think if you can get just a little bit more view range on like a destroyer or something, or a destroyer that's behind a smoke cloud, not in the smoke cloud, but behind it. All these situations, there's a lot of experience on when to know when to use the battleship. But when these situations arise, that's when you want to use the plane. You don't want to just fire it up there willy-nilly. Save those planes until you think they'll actually help you, then activate them. And those can often save your life or even friendly ships' lives if used appropriately. Or sometimes you'll just confirm that nothing's near you or whatever. I mean, they have a lot of different uses. But the main point for battleships is wait to use them until you think they're going to be helpful. Now, if you're just starting off the game, you're not going to really know when that is. But as you gain experience, you'll start to develop an eye for figuring out what those situations will be, when the planes will be helpful. So battleships, again, be a little bit more conservative with when you're using those planes. Cruisers, go ahead and pop them when you got them available. They'll just keep flying around you for the majority of the game. Now when your ship is sunk, those planes will stay in the air. If you sink an enemy ship and there's a plane floating around like that, sometimes if your ship has a good AA system on it, you can purposely drive under that plane and shoot it down. That'll reduce the enemy's spotting in that area. The plane will eventually run out of fuel and crash, but it's up. Currently you don't really know when that is, so sometimes you can look for those chances to shoot down planes. Next up, we have sonar. Sonar is commonly found on cruisers, a lot of destroyers, and once in a while you'll see a battleship that has it. Sonar, it's the one that has the headphones around that blue kind of orb there. And basically what it does is it spots torpedoes and it spots ships at further ranges. Now each sonar has its own rating. You'll want to check your ship stat screens and know roughly your ranges that you can spot torps. But you can see here I have this sonar activated. Now if there's a destroyer hiding in that cloud and I get within the range, as we do there, he pops up. Now you can see I'm not detected because he doesn't have sonar active. So I actually have an advantage in this situation where I can fire on him, keep him lit. My team can all see him, but he can't really see anyone that's not being spotted for him by the team. So major advantage here by using that sonar against a ship that doesn't have one like that. Likewise, if you're trying to spot torps, you suspect they're coming in the area, pop that sonar. It'll give you a lot more advanced warning on when those torps are coming, help you dodge them, and give you the advantage in those situations. So sonar, there's a lot of advantages to it. Basically what you kind of need to know. You don't need to know the stats of every sonar in the game, but you should know the rough characteristics of the sonar you're going against. So let's say for destroyers, you'll know that the German destroyer sonar is a little bit longer range than the British destroyer sonar, for instance, but it lasts it has less of a duration, I guess. I mean, that's not something you need to know when you're just starting the game, but as you develop as a player, having a rough idea about the enemy's sonar capabilities will give you an advantage. So again, you don't need to memorize the minute details, but having a rough idea of how long those sonars last, how effective they are, that'll help you out as you're playing the game. Next up we have radar. There's not a whole lot of radar in the game yet, but as time goes on, they add more ships. We'll keep seeing more and more radar cruisers. Radar will spot ships within a given distance, regardless of cover. Not torpedoes, though. So, currently, I think there's 3 radar cruisers, if I remember. The Atlanta's range is 8.4, and Baltimore 9, and Indiana 9.9, I think. If you can know those radar distances, that's going to save your skin a lot as a destroyer player. Radars are your bane as a destroyer player, and if you get within range of a ship, you can see we deployed the radar here. Now we're identifying this biscuit on the screen, the Bliskoviska. That ship cannot be seen by anyone on my team here, but because we activated the radar, he's now available on every one of my team's screens and on their maps. Now what you want to do typically, this is not a very good use of the radar. I wasn't sure where he was and I didn't want to get torped, so I used the radar here. But ideally you want to use radar when you can shoot the ship that you're looking for, and also teammates. If you're in a division, you want to let them know over the comms, I'm about to use the radar, get ready for this destroyer. That'll give them a little bit warning, get them time to prep where those guns are firing. You want to remove those destroyers each time you fire up the radar. In my mind, if you use a radar and the destroyer lives, it's kind of a failure, you know, so get in the habit of thinking that we need to use this radar effectively. Now, like a Baltimore and an Indiana, a slow-firing heavy cruiser, those ships can't really effectively kill the radar or the destroyer by itself during the duration of the radar. But a light cruiser like this Atlanta that shoots very quickly, that can solo take out a destroyer on its own during that duration. So, again, if you're a slower-firing cruiser or whatever that has the radar, try and use your team for assistance. But again, destroyers, you basically need to know the ranges of all the radars in the game by heart at your tiers, or have a pretty good rough idea. Knowing those ranges will keep you alive because you'll be staying out of those detection ranges from the ship. Like if this enemy destroyer on the screen here was playing carefully, he would know there's an Atlanta. He's within 8.4 kilometers of the Atlanta, so he can get detected at any moment. He doesn't know how to use my radar in this instance, but if he's playing smart, he needs to stay away from me because I can get him detected and result in him getting shot at any moment. So radar, very effective if you're going to use it properly. It's very effective on domination mode when destroyers are going to be instrumental for capping, and you usually have a pretty good idea where the destroyers are going to be deploying. For capture the base mode, it's not as effective, but it's still useful. And you don't only spot destroyers, keep that in mind, but that's primarily what you're going to be wanting to use those radars as a deterrent and a weapon against the destroyers. Next up we got speed boost, engine boost. This is the one shaped like an engine propeller there, third from the left on the screen there. Usually found on destroyers, sometimes on cruisers, and rarely on battleships. This will increase your engine production by, I think it's usually 10%, which basically makes your ship go faster. It can also help you start and stop faster. It does work going in reverse as well, keep that in mind. So it just basically makes you more mobile. When this is useful to use, there's a few different situations. If you're transitioning from one side of the map to the other, you really want to try and use it in those situations if you have it available, because that'll cut down on the downtime where you're kind of not being useful and you're kind of dead weight on your team. If you can get from where you are now, where there's nothing to do, over to where the rest of your team is or the enemy is quicker, that'll get you back in the fight and keep you more effective. It can also help when you're trying to dodge torps or get out of sticky situations where enemies are rushing you. Like if, let's say you're a destroyer hiding in a smoke cloud, you see a battleship coming your way, pop that speed boost, head the opposite direction, get out of dodge. So a speed boost doesn't seem like the most amazing tool in the toolkit ever, but when used effectively, it can, help you out in a lot of different situations. So practice with those speed boosts. Next up, we have smoke. Smoke is a very complex topic that, it's a skill using smokes that will require you a lot of practice and learning to get good at them. I'm not going to go too deep into there. I do have a beginner's series guide on the smoke, and since then, throughout a lot of my destroyer videos, we've had a lot more knowledge about smoke throughout there. So again, it's too complex for this kind of overview video. But in general, what smoke does is it acts as a block in the line of sight, which will drop your ship from concealment. You know, and again, visions and spotting, that's another fairly complex topic that I do have another beginner series video on with that one as well. But you can see it appears as that white line on the screen when the smoke is active. That's kind of the radius of the smoke, and what it does, if you're within the smoke, planes cannot see you and other ships cannot see you unless you fire, and your firing detectability penalty puts you within range of these ships. Like I said, it's kind of a complex topic, but basically, you know, you can find these stats on your ship's stat page, and you're going to use smoke to disengage from fights, hide in the clouds, shoot guns, you know, well hidden, disengage. There's a lot of different uses for smoke. It's a very valuable tool. It's a key component of destroyer play. Once we get English cruisers, that's going to be a key component of them as well. Smoking up your teammates, another possibility. Laying down smoke cover for them, hiding them from enemy fire. Again, this is going to be the one consumable that's kind of glossed over the most in this video, and it's just due to the fact that it's a very complex topic, so forgive me there, but we do have more information available throughout the channel on smokes. Quickly, the white line on that screen when I zoom out, that's the range I'm talking about of the smoke, and then that gold icon to the kind of top left corner there, that's counting down. That's how much time is left in the smoke. You can see once that hits 0, the smoke disappears. Now I'm being spotted. So those are both key parts of understanding the smoke by looking at the screen. So to close out, I'll just put this screenshot of the Baltimore here. This is where you find the consumable stats of the ships under the loadout tab. And as you get more and more familiar with the game, you should start to learn, you know, kind of generalities about the consumables. A lot of the differentiation between the nations comes down to consumable usage and which consumables are available, or maybe they stand out for a nation. So like maybe this nation has a good heal on battleships, this nation has an exceptionally long range for the sonar, this one has a longer lasting damage con, stuff like that. Those will be part of the nation's specific characteristics that you'll kind of learn as you become more and more familiar with the game, and eventually, you know, that'll just help your overall gameplay as you learn more and more about them. But I put this Baltimore up here. This is again an instance of, if I'm a destroyer player, I need to know the Baltimore has a 9-kilometer radar. Now again, there's only I think 3 radars in the game currently, so it's pretty easy to learn, but as time goes on it might be a little more complicated. But it is important, because if you get within 9 kilometers of this ship and it activates the radar, there's a pretty good chance you're going to die because of it. So certain consumables are going to need to be knowing a little bit more specific information. Other ones you can just kind of get a general feel of, you know, like planes, for instance. All cruiser planes tend to fly for the same amount of time and have the same cooldown. So those are ones you don't really need to know the stats of as much, you know. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, you should consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions about this, there's probably a lot that I skimmed over. If you do have questions, leave them below. I'll try and help you, or someone else will probably chime in if I don't get to it. And also, if you have other strategies that I didn't have time to get to, put those in the comments. A lot of you people that watch a lot of my videos have been playing the game for quite a while, and you no doubt have tips for newer players that they can go down, read through the comments, and hopefully pick up some new information that I didn't have time to cover here. So check out those comments, and we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.